Well, I do want to welcome everybody to this is our legislative preview at the Wiley Chamber of Commerce. Today we are joined by State Representative Candy Noble, and she will be discussing a little of what the current legislative session topics are, hopefully some of the hot button issues, as well as maybe just give us a little mechanical overview of what's going on actually in the Capitol as they try to have a legislative session through a very odd time. And as I mentioned, we are happy to have Representative Noble, who is the elected representative to House District 89. She was elected in 2018, and the District 89, I think it's Copeville, Fairview, Lavon, Lowry, Crossing, Lucas Murphy, Nevada, Parker, Plano, and Saxe. St. Paul and Wiley, is that all of your universal area that you cover?
I I don't know. You did it in such a different order than I usually do it. I didn't hear you say Fairview, but you may have said Fairview.
I did. I memorized that
Okay.
this morning, so I'm not going to go back and do it again. But yeah, that's an amazing geographic representation. And so, without any further discussion, Representative Noble, please take the floor. I look forward to hearing you.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me today. Can you hear me okay? All right, then. I'm coming to you from my office in the Capitol. For those that came 2 years ago, we literally moved straight across the hall from where we were last time. We gained about 100 square feet, which is a big deal in the Capitol, and we are just tickled pink to be here. It was 2 weeks ago today that I was sworn in for my second term in the Texas House. I'm just so honored to represent you here in Austin. What a blessing that is for me. I'm going to start today with a little Texas bragging because that's what we do as Texans, right? Um, Mainly because y'all are such a big part of what makes Texas such an amazing place to live and work and raise a family. Did you know that the nation's CEOs have named Texas the best state for business for 16 straight years? Of course, the heart of our economic success is our Texas small businesses. 9 in 10 Texas businesses are small businesses, and they employ nearly half of all working Texans. Because of that productive workforce, we have led the nation in exports for 18 years in a row. Did you know Texas is the top state for women entrepreneurs? We've got many of you on the call on this Zoom meeting today. For those of you that are hardworking realtors, did you know that our Texas homeownership rate is at an all-time high, 70%? We exceed the national rate. Texas has skilled, growing, and diverse workforce that is more than 12 million strong, and we are among the youngest workforce in the U.S. By the way, our population now is over 28.9 million. We're closing in on 29 million. And for Ian and others that are in education, Texas educates 1 in 10 of all public elementary and secondary students in the nation. That's incredible. So all that to say, I am so grateful for all you guys do to make our area amazing. Of course, I think our area is the crown jewel of Texas. So that is some serious bragging. I was going to talk about the vaccine a little bit. We did have quite a few calls last week. The legislative delegation for Collin County had quite a few calls last week with our with pretty much anybody that would talk to us in the state capitol about the allotment for Collin County, and we were able to move that needle. What happened was a lot. You had to turn in back at the very beginning that you wanted to have how many vaccinations you would be able to give out a day, and some people kind of lagged on turning that in. So some of the other areas got a little ahead of us on their allotment. So that has been we've been getting a little bit more last week, next week, and hopefully going forward, Collin County will be getting quite a bit more. And thank you to Wiley for being willing to be one of those hubs. I don't think that that's happening quite yet, but wow, what a great place to live and work. I'm so grateful for your willingness to step up there and help out. I'm now working from Austin, and I must admit it's been kind of weird here so far. Normally, on the day we're sworn in, we have many, many visitors to our Capitol office. And this year, you know how many we had? 3. They all came together. It was very strange. Sadly, last week, the Capitol was closed for 5 days due to a known threat against state capitals around the nation, around the time of the inauguration. But the good news is that the Capitol's now open, and there is an opportunity to get COVID tested prior to visiting the Capitol. It's right outside our north gate, our north entrance, but it is not required. By the way, I've already had COVID, and so I'm good to go. You're not going to give it to me, and I'm not going to give it to you if you want to come visit me. I would welcome you to come. What is kind of weird around the Capitol, and it's very quiet, is the number of DPS officers and guardsmen that are here. I must say is a little jarring when I get off the elevator to have an officer in full riot gear standing there. But the good news is if you come visit us, you will be very, very safe. Of course, you already were, but that is something that's kind of different this time. Whoops, I messed up on I'm sorry, I have to read. As you know, I'm a limited government girl, so I'm currently working on not a lot of bills, but some really great ones. Each one's important to me and hopefully would be important to you. Last session, you might remember, I only carried 7 bills. I carried the least number of bills in the House and the Senate, but here's the cool part. 5 of them I got into law. A 6th one I got done through a agency rule change. And so I only had that one bill that was left an orphan after the end of last session. And that was the one that I really loved. And so I'm hoping to get it done this time. It requires that an animal be scanned for a chip before it's euthanized or adopted out by an animal shelter or rescue organization. Believe it or not, there's no law that requires that right now. And, if your grandmother's wedding ring is stolen, the pawn shop has to check it for stolen property if it comes into their shop. But we have no such provision for our animals. And most animal owners would rather lose grandmother's wedding ring than their dog or cat. Because they're part of their family. So hopefully we'll get that one across the finish line this time. I am working on a lot of other bills, several that are concerning CPS and the way that our foster care arena conduct their business. That's something that I became very familiar with last time. Well, I served on the Collin County CPS board prior to being elected here and on the Juvenile Justice Board. And so it's something that's near and dear to my heart that we make sure that the kids that are brought to the attention of CPS, that if they need to be removed, they be removed. If it's a situation where they don't need to be removed, not to mess with them. And we want that pendulum to be plumb and not swing too far to either side. So those are some bills that I'm going to be carrying that are very important to me. There's some other stuff I'm going to do. I did want to talk about one that I'm hoping will get into law. You ever had trouble figuring out what you're voting on, what exactly it means when you vote on a constitutional amendment election? Last time we had one that was so convoluted, it was the one that would have kept us from ever having a state income tax, but the way it was worded was such a mess that several of us had to chip in to do basically a campaign to let people know what that constitutional amendment meant. So I'm filing a bill that would require that constitutional amendment ballot language must be in simplified language. Thinking this one's long overdue. The truth is that the people that write our bills are lawyers and they're good at it, but sometimes they think in lawyer language and not in common sense language. And really, they probably need to have the constitutional amendments written by 4th grade teachers because they are used to taking complex issues and making them simplified. And that is something that I think is absolutely necessary. And I hope to get that one done. There are 2 things that as a legislature, we are actually required to do. And this is the Texas Constitution. First, we have to have a balanced budget. You may have heard, back at the height of COVID, that we were very short of our projected income as a state. We, in fact, at one time, it looked like we were 4.8 billion short from our projections. When we made the budget 2 years ago, and we do them by biennially, so we do them every other year. No one could have imagined how COVID would shut down our economy like it did, or imagine the crash in the oil and gas prices like all of those kind of made a perfect storm for the Texas budget. But here's the sort of good news. We're not 4.8 billion short. In fact, we are only, well, this is still short, 946 million short. So that's a significant improvement over that shortfall. It's still a lot of shortfall, but it certainly could have been worse. One of the reasons we're better off than we even anticipated is were two House bills that we heard in Ways and Means last session. I serve on Ways and Means, General Investigating, and on Human Services. Those are the three committees I served on last session. Don't know yet where I'll be serving this time. That's up to the speaker. But we passed two House bills, House Bill 1525 and House Bill 2153, and those require that online retailers, sorry about that, the ones that are out of state and in state, charge and remit a sales tax, just like our brick and mortar businesses do. So if you ordered something from Wayfair to be delivered to your home, that sales tax is now going to where you live. And this has been really a big deal for our local governments. When the bill passed 2 years ago, the best guess was that it would impact the state by about 500 million, which is a pretty big deal. But what happened under COVID, with all of us sitting home and ordering on Amazon and other places, was that that exceeded that amount. In fact, in the first 12 months of these bills, these two bills, tax collection, they added more than 1.6 billion to our state and local budgets. That was amazing, and it really, I know that our cities are grateful for that, for those monies that came, especially the cities that don't have as much retail as others. It really made a big impact on their bottom line of their budgets, and of course, it made a big impact on the bottom line of the state budget as well. We have now had our base budget for the House given to us. The Senate does a base budget, the House does a base budget. They're very similar. And then from that, the Appropriations Committee kind of comes up with the additions and the subtractions, whatever they want to do. The proposed budget cuts spending in most areas of government. It's that time, we all had to make some hard decisions around our kitchen tables about whether this is the year to buy a new car or change the tires and keep driving the one around. This is a change the tires and keep driving kind of year in the state budget. There are proposed cuts in spending to most areas, with the exception of public education, which has a 2.7% increase in this proposed budget. Currently, the largest portion of our state spending goes to education, and that's about a little over 37%. The second largest expense we have as a state is our health and human services spending, and that's pretty close, getting closer and closer to education. It's 36%. Those spendings are basically people on Medicare, healthcare expenses, foster care, CPS. So you can see why those expenses tend to go up quickly. And education is constitutionally required in our state, so it's always going to be a priority for us as Texans, and making sure that we make sure our next generation is educated and ready to be part of providing for their families and being part of the workforce. The other constitutionally required job we must do is redistricting. We get to do that every 10 years. As of now, it looks like the federal government's going to be getting those numbers to us later than they have in previous decades. It's just, part of COVID. The census numbers look like now they're going to, I think they usually get them to us around mid-February, but it looks like it's going to be later now. So not sure when we'll be able to get around to the hearings on redistricting. Of course, our session ends on May 31st. So it's looking more and more like probably there will be a special session to do redistricting. I'm hoping that that's not true. I'm hoping that we can do it, in regular session. But I'm not planning a family vacation this summer, just in case. I'll just put it that way. It's rumored that the Senate is really tightening up on the number of priority bills or bills that each senator may bring before the Senate committees. And it's kind of interesting. So this makes the House work way more important this session. We're only given 140 days to get our work done. We get 140 days every 2 years to work for you and to get the work done that we need to do. And so I think it's very important that as a legislature that we buckle down and do that work and not back off because of COVID. Just take it on and do what we need to do. It's not as easy as you might think to get a bill into law. You know, the bill has to be drafted and then sent through committee and then get on the calendar before it ever comes to the House floor to be voted. And then it starts all the way over in the Senate. So I'm hopeful that this year we will be productive, that we will get the things done that need to be done, and that I am a productive member, as I am so honored to represent you. Again, I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys and how much you do for us, and what a blessing it is to serve you in the Texas House. I think y'all were going to do maybe some questions. Is that right?
Yes, I think I don't know that we had anybody put any actually in the chat, and I don't know that I asked you guys to go ahead and do that when we started. So we're going to have to open it up to just a hand up. If you have a question within this group that I'm staring at, anybody got a question? Don't be afraid.
Oh, can I say while y'all are thinking about that? I want to introduce, if y'all haven't already met her, Zoe Whitlake. Zoe, wave your hand. She's our newest staff member here in Austin, and she's amazing. She's an SMU graduate, and she has joined us. And of course, Suzanne Bowers, y'all already know and love, and is my chief of staff. And Suzanne is a blessing because she moves to Austin and then moves back home with us. So y'all all know her really well. All right, I think somebody waved.
I have one from Ian. First we go bow tie and then Dr. McCray with the college.
I was just waving at Suzanne and Zoe. I don't really have a question. I was just acknowledging them.
Dr. McCray, I knew I should have gone to you first.
Okay, I was just waving as well to welcome Zoe and say hi to Suzanne. But Kitty, thank you so much for your work in Austin on our behalf. We really appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, if you're waving to Zoe, do it left-handed. If you have a question, do it right-handed, please. Confusing us. Okay, Lynn, is that left hand or is that right hand? I can't tell. That was a dumb thing to say. Candy, I think, did you mention any of the hot button issues? Always transportation seems to come up. Obviously, within the county, transportation means different things to different cities within the county. How do you kind of juggle that when you know that more central, they're dealing with DART issues and getting people in and out of the city that way. And then when you get over to the east side, there is about, one road to get you in and out. And I think a lot of people want more. So it really differs between cities in the county. Is that something that's going to be discussed, or is that on the agenda at all?
I tell you what, the transportation is we actually have a lot of designated funds that go to transportation. It's not, I wish it were the entire gas tax personally that would go to transportation to make sure that we have the roads, because without our roads, we don't get our goods and services to where they need to be. Out in our neck of the woods, things are growing and changing so quickly. And it surprised me to find out for a road to be built is at least a 10-year process for a major road to be built or even a major improvement on them. So we need to get in line really quickly on Collin County and make sure that those changes are coming our way as before they're needed, not after. Remember when they built the George Bush and it looked like it was in the middle of nowhere, but boy, howdy, what forethought went into that. We need to be on doing that now. I really don't want a major road like the George Bush to go through the middle of our district. I'll be honest with you. That has been a proposal, but of course that is up to the Collin County Commissioner's Court. So fuss at them if you're worried about one coming through your neighborhood or your neck of the woods. Eric is, right?
Eric's just
worried about that, but I got a quick question too about that.
Go ahead, Eric.
You're right. We know that based on just looking at some maps, Candy, like even from the 1950s, Dallas County had all their roads kind of mapped out. And we know that in Collin County, it was Central Expressway, basically. And you can kind of see that. But we know the county commissioners over the last couple of years, we've talked about the outer loop. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about that private tollway years ago that was on the east side of town that was going to come down to Greenville and hook up to George Bush, that we got stopped. But we know that some improvements are going to need to be made. I'm not so much asking where does the state have, because you said it right. I mean, it takes years to plan all this out. But we also know that for one lane, 1 mile of concrete is about $1 million. So I'm asking more of a money question than anything else. Are there state funds that can be put aside to help in that preparation? Because we know you're going to rely on the state because some of them are state roads like 1378. But we also know that when you get to Lucas, you got folks that they don't want the road expanded to 6 or 4 lanes. But we also know that somehow or another there's got to be some road improvements, and it's going to take state dollars, local dollars, and county dollars. Does the state, this is more of a question, does the state put those funds aside knowing that those needs are going to be there for certain districts? I guess that was a long way to ask, can we get some money?
I actually need to find out the answer to that question. It's a really good question. I know that the funds that are being spent right now, and there were those that were like, it's time to put the brakes on, with COVID, but those funds had already been allocated a long time ago. So my assumption is that the funds are allocated a good bit out. It took the commissioner's court until quite recently to decide how 380 was going to be improved upon. And I think that had been in the planning stages for years and years and years. And anybody that's driven over on 380 knows that is way overdue. And maybe, I guess McKinney was the hiccup because everybody wanted it to be where they wanted it to be. So I don't anticipate the outer loop question to be handled for several years yet, which actually concerns me because we are having developments going on everywhere in the district, all the way out to Nevada. And so there is less and less opportunity for drawing that map as we go along. I'm concerned that we're not looking into the future like we should.
Right, and that to me is, I agree with you. The big challenge is the outer, in my opinion, this Eric holds 2 cents, not that it matters, but the outer loop is something they ought to seriously look at because there is still land out there. And just as a quick example, not to hit on Mike Agnew's neighborhood, but Renner Road dies at his neighborhood, and we'll never go any further because there's a house right there on Renner Road that someone decided to drive through this during the holiday season, it looked like. But because if we don't plan now, and I go back to that 1950s map, we're not going to be able to get more roads in. And Colleyville is a prime example of that, and they did it intentionally so that no freeway or tollway could come through their town. They filled it up with houses. And so I wish they'd really focus on the outer loop and try and get that done, because like you said about George Bush, it was in the middle of nowhere while we were all watching it be built, and now look at it. And the same thing's going to happen in the outer loop.
True. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely Renner to some people does actually go all the way through to Wiley, Eric. I just tell you that. Since I've lived in this neighborhood, there's been about 10 who really felt like if it's not going to go through, I'm just going to make my own path. Yeah, I feel for those homeowners. Eric, that's a great question. You have some strong opinions, man. Have you ever thought of running for office or something?
Nah, I think I'll just become a commentator. I'm waiting on Fox or CNN to call me. I don't think CNN will, though. But anyway, I'm still waiting.
Do we have any other questions? Anyone? Pastor Jeff?
Representative Noble, I'm interested, you mentioned, so the shortfall ended up being better than expected, but I think you said around 900 million, correct?
Right, a little over 900 million.
So what do you anticipate when we got, again, this percentages you gave, 38% goes to school, 30 or 37, 36 to health initiatives and issues. So what do you anticipate will be the cuts this year? Or is that statistically, am I just unaware that though that's a huge number to me, is it such a small percentage of the state budget, it won't have much of an impact?
It's not a small percentage. In fact, there, education and and the human services costs are kind of set in stone. We can't move them a lot. That just about, I was just pulling up the estimate here. That all articles on the proposed budget cut state spending by 5%, and that's every other spot. So it cuts in ways that frankly will affect the government, the size of government, and in a good way. Sometimes it will affect services not in a good way, and so that's something that remains to be seen. And of course, each of those agencies will need to kind of dig in and see where they might have something that they can, like I said, change the tires and keep driving for a little bit longer without doing any damage statewide. But that's just the way that we're all having to live right now, and it's hard. I've only served one session, and we were in a horn of plenty time, and we were able to do a lot, especially in higher education, and give some wish list things out last time. And this isn't the wish list year. This is the tighten your belt year. And you know what? That's appropriate. It's appropriate when we go through significant. We've all done it in our own businesses. We've all done it in our own homes. So it's just time. What's interesting is that the comptroller said that what's interesting in Texas is that a lot of Texans remained employed and had plenty of income, and we put it in the bank. We have more money in the bank than we've had in many, many years. It's kind of interesting. So he anticipates that once Texans feel better about the future going forward, that there will be some spending that happens in Texas, that we'll make some investments, and so that's kind of a silver lining, that our debt amount went lower, and our savings accounts went up a little bit. Who knew that it would take COVID to do that for us, right?
Yeah, and I'm not even against cutting budgets at times. I do think we all get bloated, even the household budgets, in good times. And sometimes it takes rough times for us to tighten up and get rid of things that we probably have let go just because it's been easy to let them go. But so are you saying that those across the rest of those budgets, that departments will get a number of a 5% decrease, and it will be up to them to make those cuts? Or does the legislature make those individual budget decisions? I'm just not sure how it operates.
Yeah, this is just a base budget. This is just a proposed budget. So it will be up to our appropriations committee to do hearings. The big shock on this one is there's a proposed 32% cut in natural resources. So what does that mean? I actually haven't dug in enough to figure out where all those cuts are coming from in natural resources. It will be interesting to see how that works out. And again, they haven't even begun their hearings yet because the committees haven't been seated, but it will be something that they'll iron out in committee on. They get down really in the weeds on appropriations. I must admit, I didn't put that on my list of things that I wanted to serve on, but I did tell the speaker that I'm willing to serve anywhere he needed me. So I may end up there, and I'll have to get y'all to delete that off the recording.
Well, I can edit pretty well, Candy, so I'll do my best. Unless there are any other questions, please raise your hand, but I do know you've got to run to another meeting, so I don't want to keep you for that. Thank you so much for joining us today. I probably will get with you maybe post session. Love to get a kind of a bookend to how it went and things like that.
And I would love to add, if you guys, I know y'all done Wiley Days in the past. We're open. We're open and ready. Now, we can't reserve rooms for you yet, but hopefully that will be in the days ahead, especially as more and more people get vaccinated, that the Capitol will be more and more open. I talked to a school teacher this week that said that they're coming in May, that they're going to go ahead and bring their 4th grade group. And so there are groups that are going to come. And so if y'all are ready and willing, I'd love to have you come be my guest here in Austin.
It is amazing how fluid the situation is. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, it was, oh, ooh, I don't, no, I don't think so. And here we are. All right. It's the race for the hotel rooms now. But thank you so much for joining us today. We always good to get the insight. And like I say, we'd love to have you on once the session's over, get a little kind of a summary of what went on. And yeah, like I say, I know you got to run. I've got some prizes to give away, so we'll let you hop on off. And thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it.
I love you guys in Wiley. I appreciate you so much. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. Before we go to the prizes, the few things, upcoming events, chamber wise, like we said, in planning this year, it was a very, probably the oddest planning session I've ever had, trying to project a full year when you can't really see a day ahead. But we do have a plan, and we're filling the spots with right now virtual stuff. But as you can hear, things are opening back up. So as people get more comfortable doing it, this would actually have been a luncheon, and we would all be someplace eating and looking at each other and talking and stuff like that. And, so maybe next month after, we'll start creeping up and get out and get a little more networking to connect to the educational stuff that we're going to be bringing to you. We're excited about it. We have a lot of fun things that we have on tap to do. We just can't wait to be able to do them. All right. I'm going to share this real quick. Tina, if you would let me know, what are we giving away?
I have B&B tickets, B&B gift cards.
When the things open up, the theater is going to be the place to be. And we're going to give that to.
I'll tell you what, they are taking phenomenal precautions and everything in the theater at B&B.
Well, one goes to Christy. Christy, if you're there, you won B&B theater tickets. What do you got in the bag there, Tina? What else?
That's all I have right now are B&B tickets.
You want to give away more?
Sure.
All right, let's give away 2 more. John Massage Bliss.
Awesome.
Now, in the old
Thanks.
Very good. We used to say you have to be present to win, but now in the Zoom world, you have to actually be on the Zoom call. You cannot mute it and put the little screen off and then go walk away. So we have to check. John, you won B&B tickets. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you. And by the way, I went to the movie theaters a couple times already. And usually when you go, you're by yourself in the whole theater. It's pretty safe when you're by yourself at a theater. So you shouldn't be shy to go. There's plenty of spacing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. McCray, I did not reach out to you as we were talking here, and I think she's got us on. Are you, what's going on at the college? I didn't get an update from you. I apologize for that.
Okay, things are good here. We've had a good start to our spring semester. Usually in colleges, the spring semester is a little bit lower in enrollment than the fall, but we kind of maintained even numbers with where we were in the fall. We've got students at about 75% face-to-face in smaller classrooms, socially distanced. So if the class held 30, we're putting 12 to 15 in the class, socially distanced. And then we have about 25% of our students online, which we know during these times is a real popular option. But things are going well, and we're just trying to be very, very careful. Last week, we hosted the fire department for the vaccinations here. And that was Thursday and Friday. That all went very well. So we're working with the fire department to see if we get some additional dosage, and we'll be opening up to help out with that function. But all is well.
Fantastic. And of course, we will have a state of the city, a state of the school, a state of the college. We look forward to having those updates through the year. We're pushing them a little back so that maybe we can actually have them in person, but I cannot wait to get back together for those kind of things. Thank you for coming on today. I did point out my boss, Catherine Genn. I just want to make sure I do that, recorded and unrecorded. Catherine, thank you so much for taking on this. It is a challenge, and we appreciate you stepping up to do that. I think that's about all I have. Tina, anything else I need to say?
If you were going to do 2 more, you've got 1 more to go. Or was Lynn the last winner?
Lynn wasn't the last winner, were you? Did you win?
I have Christy and John.
Yep. You're acting like it's already pre-selected. Don't do that. Lynn, if you win, we're in deep trouble. Here we go. B&B tickets, B&B tickets. Jan, did Janarant, is she still on? No, the crowd was excited, but she's not here. What'd you do today? Well, I watched a guy spin a wheel on a Zoom call. Allison. You win, Allison.
Well, hey, that's awesome. Great. Thank you.
You got some B&B theater tickets. Well, I think that's about it. Now, I know I asked Pastor Jeff to pray us on earlier, but I got right into Candy, and wanted to get her thing going. So I think it's just as appropriate as we leave. Pastor Jeff, give us some parting words to make us, just fill us with some excitement and some joy. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me pray. Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for these individuals. I pray your blessing over them, their business, their work. Lord, whatever it is they do, we thank you for Representative Noble and for her time. We pray you'd give her wisdom and protection, Lord, as she represents us during this session. Lord, I just pray your best for everyone the rest of this day, that it would honor you and that you would give them blessings unexpected as they head out to the rest of whatever is on their agenda. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Jeff, thank you. And I think we might have started something. I think that's more, I mean, you're safe when you come meet with us, but when you leave, that's when you need that. So we're going to do a walk-off prayer from now on. I appreciate that. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on. We have our business card exchange tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's different people in the Zoom boxes, but then some of the same. And it's a great way to network. We tell everybody now, you want to network, get to know the faces you see in the screen, because very soon you're going to be live and you want to start the process now. Thank you guys. Have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.